So for this week's question, this is actually not necessarily a question that was posed directly to us, but it's more of an observation that I've had a lot recently, and I wanted to bring it to you to get your thoughts. So I've been doing a lot of hiring. I've had a lot of people reach out to me completely cold on LinkedIn, asking to connect, asking for informationals. I don't know these people from anyone.
Oh,
And it feels very transactional because they want something from me, but they haven't done anything for me yet. I don't even know who they are, right? So like, why should I take the time when I don't have a lot of time to respond?
yeah. Jen, gosh, that's a great question. In part, especially relevant because I know both of us feel so strongly about helping people, and that our typical reaction when people ask for help is to say yes. And in fact, a lot of people's typical reaction, people want to help other people. And I think what you're talking about, both that transactional nature of showing up and saying, do this for me, not even we have a connection, here's something that I'm looking for help, or even any semblance, it sounds like, of trying to build a connection or establish a relationship. It sounds like it's just someone showing up with their hand out.
It's interesting because I've noticed it more, and maybe it is just because of the hiring nature and like how much noise there is around that when that's happening. But it's a very different reaction than when somebody reaches out to me on LinkedIn and says, hey, we met at this thing, or I see that we have a common connection. I would love to connect with you to, learn a little bit more about what you're doing, or whatever it is. Right. But it's not an ask in like, you have to give me your time. It's more of a, hey, I'd like to actually get to know you. Like that is very different to me than this. Like, I actually had somebody internally. They've pinged me 4 times in the last 2 days asking for an informational for this role. I don't know them.
Oh, yeah, no.
And it just feels like they're requesting something of me when I, and to your point, I really do want to help people. But like, I don't have capacity to handle the 500 requests that I've gotten in the last 3 months on LinkedIn. I just don't.
Yeah.
And I feel bad, but like, how can we help people understand that that's not, you gotta learn to break through the noise, because this is probably happening to a lot of people.
Yeah. Hearing that example reminds me that, so I had a former intern several years ago, and wonderful, wonderful woman. She was another engineer, and she asked me if I would do a speaking engagement with her class from her college, which is a very small college, and just come and speak as a Microsoft full-time employee. And I said, sure, absolutely happy to help. And we scheduled something with the school, and I showed up virtually and probably spent 45 minutes chatting and answering questions. And then maybe a year later or so, someone from that school reached out and said, I saw that you spoke at this school. Can I get some of your time? And I said, sure, let's set up 15 minutes, because honestly, that might sound short to some people listening. To me, especially at that time, and even right now, 15 minutes is
a lot.
Actually, yeah. Mm-hmm. He showed up 10 minutes late. He did not say anything about showing up 10 minutes late. I had to end it, I knew, in 5 minutes. And he said, hi, you spoke at the school. And I said, yeah. I was a manager for this intern. And he said, can you get me a job? And I'm not paraphrasing. And I honestly didn't.
Wait. You've never met him. He heard you speak.
No.
He shows up 10 minutes late and then asks straight up, can you get me a job?
He didn't even hear me speak. He just saw that there was the connection and that I had spoken, and he didn't make any attempt to get to know me or have me get to know him. He said, can you get me a job? And when I said, I don't actually know you, he said, well, I'm looking for a job. And here's the thing. I get that people looking for a job feel that urgency. And I get that their situation is different than mine. I am employed. If there's something I can do to help, yes. At the same time, I don't know him. How could I possibly recommend him? How would I know what's a good fit? How could I say, Jen, can you interview this person who I don't know? And then have you come back and say, this person was wildly unqualified or in some way really not a good fit.
I would come back to you and I'd be like,
Don't do
why
that
did you
again,
send it to
Naomi.
me? Like, I would really be questioning your judgment if you
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of credibility and your own reputation to try to help people with this.
Yes.
And
Your
this
own
is
capital. You're spending
build
your
capital.
capital.
Exactly. How do you have to give value before you expect value in return?
Yeah.
Right. And
That's it.
sometimes value, people may be like, well, how do I give value to somebody that I don't know? But
Yeah.
it's more of, it's just building that long-term relationship
Yep.
so that it
Which is
doesn't feel so
typically
transactional. It actually feels like I know this person.
and if you are asking for something, again to your point of value, you don't have to show up in maybe what you would think would be a traditional way of here is something I can give to you, so much as I recognize you as a person. Hey Jen, I saw on LinkedIn you're hiring. I also noticed that you had this as your personal statement, and that's something that resonates really strongly with me.
That's actually out of all of the cold reach outs that I received while hiring. There was one that stood out
Ooh, okay.
because they said, I see that you and I, and they had clearly gone deeper dive into my profile,
Yeah.
that you and I share one of our top 5 strengths.
Oh,
Because from
see? Finder,
I have them on my profile. I see
Connection.
you share that, and I think we could have some interesting. And honestly, it was written in such a precise way
Mhm.
that made it clear that
Short.
they had done a
You
little
like
bit of
short.
homework.
Yep.
That even though I didn't know them, and the ask wasn't even for an informational, it was just a hey, I would like to connect. Well,
Nice.
I knew that they had applied, so I went and looked at their resume, and we actually ended up doing a phone screen. So, like, there
Yeah.
are ways to connect with people too.
Yep.
But to your point, you can't wait until you need a job to
No.
start connecting. You need to be connecting well ahead of that. And
Yeah.
you never know. That's the other thing too. Like, you never know who might be that's connected to someone that is hiring
Yeah.
someday.
Yeah.
So it could be your intern. I connect with interns after they've been on my team because you
Oh
know
my
what?
god.
Who
Yeah.
knows? I could end up working with them again someday. Maybe their team or their company will be hiring and I'll want to go work there. Like, so building those relationships, regardless of level, role, it's just important. Period.
Yeah. Not only recognizing you as yourself, showing that you did that homework, that demonstrates a ton. When you show up and ask for things, the way that you are introducing yourself, the way that you are asking for anything says so much about you, whether you want it to or not. So being really intentional is so important. And also, once you have that relationship, you can have a transactional moment in the relationship, but do not let it become a transactional relationship. There's one woman who is she's been applying for jobs. She's currently hired has a job, but she's been applying for jobs, and she pings me, Naomi, reach out to this hiring manager for this. Naomi, do this. There's maybe sometimes I hope you're doing well, but there is nothing from her except for do this, do that, do this. Help, help, help. It does not make me feel connected. And it's also at this point burned through. Like, I've reached out to enough hiring managers. I need to take a break. I also have a full-time job. I'm also doing other things. Sometimes it really feels as if people are not viewing you as anything except a resource.
Yes, I
And
am.
when you're just a resource, it doesn't engender those feelings of wanting to help.
It doesn't. It doesn't. And I know it's hard. I know it's
Yeah.
hard for you, and I have talked about this before. Like, I have a really tough time ignoring when people reach out for
Oh
help.
my gosh,
But I
yes.
found I absolutely had to when I was hiring because there were so many people. I just had to. I had to
Yeah.
let that go. And I have to let the guilt that I feel about that
It's
go.
so hard.
It is. It is. And it's interesting. Flip it for a second. If you reached out for help with someone, do you expect a response all of the time?
Oh, yeah, no. I'm always just so thrilled when I get one.
That's And unless it's some of them a really close connection with,
Yeah, yeah,
if I reached out for help with you, we work together all the time, and you didn't respond, I actually would probably be concerned. I'd be like, what's going
yeah,
on with her? Is she
yeah.
okay? Like, we need to
Same.
check in, but for a lot of people, if I haven't talked to them in a while and we still have that connection and I reach out, I don't expect a response. And
Yeah,
I am glad when I get one. And then I am more than happy, and it goes back and forth because there are different times in your career that you're able to help different people.
yeah, yeah. Depending on your position and what they're reaching out for. And also when I reach out for help, I tend to be extremely specific. Going back to the advice that you had for people reaching out for mentors,
Yep.
I ask them, I specifically say, here's what I'm looking for. Could I get 10 minutes of your time? It would be wonderful if you wouldn't mind helping. And I also acknowledge, I know you're busy. I know we haven't talked in a while. Whichever statement feels most relevant to let them know, I recognize that you are having a life that's independent of what I need right now.
Exactly. And you don't know where somebody's at in their life right
No.
now either. That's the thing when
Mhm.
you reach out. You really don't know what they're going through either.
Yeah.
So I love though that the specificity, and it goes back to that mentor thing. So I think that's a couple things. Instead of making it feel transactional, think about how you can build that relationship and do it well ahead before you need a job. There
Yeah.
are ways to still impress someone
Yeah.
if you haven't met them, but don't make it feel like you're asking for something. Like, I have to give you something.
Yeah.
It's like a demand, and I'm not going to be held hostage by
Yeah.
your demands.
Yeah.
But
And
if
also,
I know you, I'll be willing to do a favor for you. So
yes. And think about it too. Asking for someone's time isn't always the best way to create a connection. If someone's really, really busy, which we all go through those phases when we're just extra busy, if someone's really busy and you say, hey, let's have a casual coffee, let's meet up for an hour, that doesn't sound casual. That sounds very, very time consuming to me.
yep.
But if you're reaching out and saying, I read this book and I know you're a reader and I thought you might like that, that is going to break through the noise and that's going to start building that connection. So think think imaginatively or creatively and authentically about what might create a connection with that person when you're reaching